Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Death By, where contestants will earn reps for their arguments for a chance to stand on top of the podium. I am your host, Lauren Kalil. Whoever I decide has the best argument through the final round will earn 30 seconds to talk about a topic of their choosing. On today's episode, we have CrossFit Games athlete Tim Paulson, CrossFit Games reporter Niki Brazier with kettlebells and cocktails. And for the first time, CrossFit athlete manager Jared Graybeal. Welcome to the show.
It's good to be here.
Let's play Death By. Topic number one, FitFest, a new competition in the UK, announced that it will have a pro athlete showcase where Games athletes will be paired up on teams. Would more showcases and fewer competitions in the offseason grow the sport? Tim gets to kick off round number one.
All right, here we go. I think absolutely yes. I don't know if this format would necessarily be like the most successful for it, kind of creating random teams like that. It would be fun for people to watch, but I don't know how much draw would there be. I think something like a pro athlete showcase where you invite maybe like 10 individuals, male and female, rotate the roster, whatever. And then they just do like 3 things in a day, like they do a lift, they do 2 CrossFit workouts or something like that. And you just have like, highlight your abilities, classic CrossFit workouts, a little heavy lifting. Everybody would love to watch it. And if you can get some prize money on the table, I think doing more less abusive things that bring eyes on the athletes and kind of showcase their abilities without, again, kind of having to go through this massive beatdown multiple times in the off season, I think would be great. And I think it would also be great for athletes because you could participate in multiple of them, versus like if you really want to go into the off season and you want to do Rogue, Wadapalooza, Dubai, all of these, like you're in for a physical thrashing. So I say yes, absolutely.
So how would you pair up the teams?
I think it kind of depends what you want to do. Like, I mean, if it might be kind of cool to just do like, male or male-female or female-female, whatever, like partnerships, like that'd be kind of cool. But then again, it's like, are you putting random people together? Are you letting athletes choose their teammates? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like you would have to think that through a little bit more. Whereas if it was just individuals, like, hey, here are 10 men, here are 10 women, have fun for, a couple hours in the middle of the day. I think that would be awesome.
3 points for Tim. Niki, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I love this idea. I think it would be wonderful for the sport. I don't know why it has to be either or. Like, should there be more athlete showcases and fewer competitions? I think you could leave the number of competitions in the offseason the same and then allow the athletes to choose their own adventure, so to speak. They don't necessarily need to be deciding whether or not to like further their careers in the sport or to just kind of like get out there for more opportunities to get eyeballs from sponsors to hopefully make some money. I hope they're being paid for these. And sort of similar to Tim, but different. I don't necessarily think that, I fully respect do something that doesn't totally wreck them for a week, right? That's really important. But I think it would be really fun if all of these showcases did something very unique that we don't normally see in competition. So I don't mind like random pairings or team sizes that are different than what we normally see. I would also love the showcases to kind of feature something that's very unique to the event itself, kind of the way that, Rogue has all the strongman stuff looped in, like maybe there's something in the space or in the location of the event that's different. Like I want to see something in a showcase that I won't see at games. Do something wacky, fun, wild. I don't know.
Do you have any wacky, fun ideas?
Oh my God, probably terrible ones. And Tim as an athlete would be like, don't do that ever. Those like challenges you see on TikTok where people are like doing like tandem cartwheels and shit. Like that's what I want to see at an athlete showcase.
Tim, you okay up there?
Please no. Please no.
Not great.
Tim's like, now I am definitely retired.
All right.
Anti-showcase
bad
now.
Example.
The double under crossovers was enough.
Fine.
Niki, I'm going to give you 4 points for creativity there, though.
Thank you.
Jared, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, first of all, do I have a time limit to answer this question?
Yeah, about a minute
new here.
Okay. I remember there used to be a time thing, and I don't know if there is anymore. So to be honest with you, to give like my in-depth answer, I would have to have more information, right? Like these athlete showcases, are they paying for travel? Is there reputable prize money? Versus the competitions where we know that either you can get the title of the fittest on earth and or make a good amount of money, you get broadcasted. So those are something that you definitely have to take into consideration. But assuming that there's the same prize money for these showcases and the same prize money for the competitions, the same broadcast level, the same exposure to their sponsors. My answer would necessarily, it would be right in the middle. There doesn't need to necessarily be more of one and less of the other. I would say that it would be great if there was probably 2 opportunities throughout the off season for there to be some type of what we would call an athlete showcase. And then I think it's been said many times that there needs to be probably some form of iteration to the competition season so athletes can plan all these things in advance regardless. With that being said, I think that you could have a happy medium of both, meaning that a showcase doesn't necessarily have to be like the Legends event at Rogue, which we can all agree is fun and entertaining, but it doesn't really get your heart beating the same way that watching Tia and Laura go head to head this year is going to be. So I think that we can have a showcase style event that doesn't beat up athletes, but it is well-rounded enough to where people are competing, to where we want to tune in, we want to pay to come see it. I think that programmers, coaches, and athletes know well enough at this point, like you can program a 6 to 9 workout competition where there's some sprint, some long, it's all balanced, right? Monostructural weightlifting, gymnastics, to where the athletes don't leave regretfully if they didn't get first through third and a bunch of money, right? So you can have a showcase that's still competitive, in my opinion.
So is there a concern right now because of the season structure and the window that we're trying to fit in these individual competitions versus like a showcase or a team that athletes will have to pick and choose whether they do the showcase or a competition?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say concern, but again, since there's so many unknowns to next year, like what, like, is any of these point systems going to come into play? Is it going to be opens, quarterfinals, semifinals in the games? If so, like, you know, of course, because I represent a few athletes and they want to know, like, well, if I go to this, I also want to go to this. So I don't know what this competition is going to be like. And if that's going to beat me up, I don't even know if I'm able to go do my best here. And if I can't do my best, I don't want to go there. So I can't tell them yes until I go to this. And so, yes, it's kind of a concern because there's so many unknowns with this even showcase coming up in FitFest. We assume it's not going to beat them down. That's what we've been told. So we can probably plan on that. But like, we don't know, like, is Wodapalooza going to be, you know, so it's like, there's still so many unknowns, and it would be nice to have some type of clarification or even have these companies work together in a way, like, or at least communicate more cohesively.
Yeah.
3 points for Jared. Go ahead, Tim.
I'll say, I think that's why it would also be cool and important to have like, you know, have like showcases, like if CrossFit headquarters again sanctioned them or whatever, like, so there was some parameters, like, again, it's like, hey, it's just 1 day, 2 or 3 events, you know, like, because then you can almost ensure that the showcases will not be a complete and utter beatdown. And like, you can go to one between semifinals and the games and be fine. You know, like, so then the time window doesn't get so constrained, because then it's like, these can be throughout the year and it can be kind of like, you know, pique people's interest and keep people fired up, like right after the games or, you know, between semis and the games. Like, you could kind of strategically position them so that you could keep people engaged with the sport throughout the year. And again, you're not beating the crap out of athletes, because like, even if you're not in great shape in the off season, you can show up and do well for a day, 2 or 3 events. You don't need to be necessarily peak training shape to show up and do that.
I will say though that for variety's sake, it probably would be best if there's a lot of these to have some sanctioned within the CrossFit space itself and some not. Some independent events that can kind of just like not necessarily work within those parameters if they don't want to, but have super clear standards and expectations set for the athletes so that they know what they're getting themselves into in one way, shape, or form. I just don't know if there's enough. If there ends up being a lot of demand, I would like as many as possible. And the athletes are empowered to choose what works for them and their schedules and their season, without them all necessarily needing to come from the exact same place, because then I think we risk them looking the same, feeling the same, as opposed to having a ton of variety.
And this is a kind of a hot take, but I think
we love a good hot take.
Hot take. Here we go.
I think there should be 1 or 2 competitions throughout the season that don't let the top 20 from the games come and compete, because then it's going to be, you know, there are a ton of entertaining athletes outside of the top 20 that maybe don't get the chance to shine because, no offense to the top 20, they show up because they know they're going to win top 3 and take the crash money. You know what I mean? So it's like, when you look at Madrid as an example, I wouldn't say Madrid needs to do this, don't let the top 20 come. But like, when you look at Madrid and you know Lazar, Yona, and Travis are coming, you already can assume the podium. And the rest of those people don't necessarily get their time to shine. And so if there are competitions that have some cash on the line, they have a good broadcast system, but they say, hey, we do want to lead athletes, but we want to leave the top 20 to Rogue and Wodapalooza. We want to let these other athletes shine. I think it's a good opportunity for those athletes, but it also is just a kind of a hard no for the top 20 athletes to be like, well, I can't even choose to go to this one. So I'm not even going to think about putting that in my season and letting that ruin my opportunity to do Wodapalooza or Rogue or this Fit Fest thing. So it's like, if there was more things happening where athletes were like, well, I don't have to consider that. It makes them easier to plan their season as well.
I don't know. You got to be a real confident competition director and not allow
You got to be a
athletes.
competition director to put on one in the first place.
Yeah, but if you know that ticket sales are going to come from big name athletes that everybody wants to see, it's going to be really hard to be like, nah, fam, not at my event. I'm good.
Yeah, maybe. But I would say that there's not a massive influx in ticket sales at Madrid for those few athletes, those people that were going to go either way. Whether or not Travis came, and this is just an example, I don't think Madrid should do this, but I think, and I don't necessarily think that any existing competition should do this in the first place, but there should be an event that pops up that has cash money, that has a broadcast that's placed throughout the season for just outside of that elite level, because they're always going to come and they're going to take the top prize, and it's a war for that top 10 people to continue to stay relevant while everyone else just waits for their time to shine.
I think that's where you need, like, down the road, like, people have thrown around the idea of like pro card system. Like that's the only way where that becomes feasible in my mind, is like, if you have a ranking system you can rely on. And it's like, you see this in other sports, like, there's events by rank. So it's like, you have an event that's like, it's like, hey, athletes of this rank will be invited first. And then, maybe they fill out from there or something. Like, I think that's the only way that you could do it, and not, I guess, just stir the pot in utter confusion. I think that's what you would kind of need, something like that first.
Yeah, a lot of things need to take place for that to work in general. But it being a hot take again.
Certainly a good hot take, though. We love hot takes around here. And I'm hoping the next topic brings some more hot takes, especially with the cast we have today. Because last week we spoke about this one with the other contestants, but I wanted to bring it to you guys, especially Tim, as a team athlete. Should the team division have their own CrossFit Games? What are your thoughts? Why or why not? Niki, I'll let you start this one. We'll let Tim stir about it for a moment.
Oh man, I'm about to piss Tim off, I bet. I think yes. I think that the team division should have its own competition. I think every division should have its own competition, because then I think we could really do every single division justice. We could dedicate its own event, its own time, its own ticket sales. We could generate enough buzz for it. We could really use those events to like help elevate different names in the sport and different athletes in the sport and different functions of the sport, and not have it feel overwhelming or confusing, not have issues where we have a great broadcast for one division and maybe not for another. I just think dedicating more time, effort, and resources to each individual division is one way to help the entire sport grow. And it's one way to get more different, unique eyeballs on different elements of the competition with different messaging and storytelling. It was really hard to kind of tell the entire picture of the entire competitive field of CrossFit all at once. And I also think for brand new eyeballs, the team competition can be confusing. If you're coming from an ESPN broadcast that had one or two really fit men or women to like 7,500 people on the field at once, and what are they doing? I think I want to make it as easy for as many eyeballs to get on the sport as possible, understand it, fall in love with it, and step into an affiliate. So yeah, I think it should be separate.
I like some of those ideas, Niki, and I do agree from a storytelling element that it would make it better. But my follow-up question to you is there enough money in the ecosystem to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And like, I don't know how the business of CrossFit runs. None of us do, though. We love to speculate one way or another. But like, I would love to hope that if we can create enough hype and buzz for each individual division to take on a competition of its own, then that competition begins to generate its own revenue from individualized ticket sales or sponsors or whatever else can come from it. And I know Jared's probably looking at me like, Niki, competitions don't make money. I know. And that's all true. But I just think if we're spread too thin, then there's no way to even test whether or not we can allow those competitions individually to kind of generate the revenue they'd need to stand on their own.
4 points for Niki. Jared, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, they should, but we don't live in a perfect world, and I'm a pragmatist. So speaking from that perspective, I don't think that they should. But with that being said, and this isn't really the question, a lot of people have talked about age groups being separated. That's all speculation as well. But assuming that does happen, which I haven't spent enough time to think about whether or not that's a good or bad idea, but assuming that the age groups do get separated and they get their own weekend to shine throughout the season, which I think could potentially be great for them. If that happens, then I don't think we separate teams from the CrossFit Games, because if the CrossFit Games goes to just being elite men and women or open men and women individuals, the top 40 in the world, and then we also only have the teams, I think it's, to Niki's point, they're not spread as thin because now they don't have the 9 or 10 different age groups in addition to, countless people from the teams, in addition to the individuals, in addition to the adaptive athletes. If they can focus for 4 straight days on the elite men and women, top 40 in the world, and then the teams, I think that could be really well ran, right? Because you've got this same, we know it's a small team at CrossFit, we've got the same team only distributing their efforts and their attention to these 2 categories. And I think it could go way better that way. I think we could probably find a way to air it on television better as well, because again, their attention and their efforts aren't spread as thin. So long story short, I don't think that it should be separated, assuming that the age groups and adaptives do get separated, which I don't know for sure.
Okay, so what if you didn't have that information? Does your thoughts change?
If we're going to keep all of it together, then yeah, let's separate the team and give them their own weekend to shine.
Okay, I like the 2 different options. We'll give you 4 points for that as well. Tim, what are your thoughts?
I'm nervous.
On this one?
I'm nervous.
Pins and needles here.
I know. Well, I'm going to come in hot with 0 points and then hopefully redeem myself, because a lot of what Jared said, I actually firmly agree with. I think that teams and individuals on the same weekend is more than enough broadcast space, scheduling space, all of that, where everybody gets a highlight. The teams aren't going at the same time as the individuals in that setting. So I think making some assumptions here, based again off of rumors and speculation, I think that that's probably the best way to go about it, is keep the teams and individuals together, because again, you have similar storylines there. Lots of individuals have gone team, vice versa. There's a lot of crossover. And then, pardon me, I have a cough from my son. And then same thing, like you put them all the age groups together, you have similar storylines, the youngest and the oldest. Like there's this kind of cohesive theme for each theoretical speculative event that you can really kind of story tell out. I think the biggest thing that needs to happen for the team division is that, frankly, there just needs to be less teams at the games. The individual field is fully warranted at 40 male and female athletes, because there's the depth in the individual field for that to be a highlight worthy thing. Like you'll see people in the bottom 20 doing well in events, being competitive throughout the weekend, whereas you don't really see that on the team. So I think the team side of things, the field needs to be cut down, because then you could potentially have less teams on the floor and everything becomes far less confusing. So if you only have 20 teams, they're all relevant to the leaderboard race most of the weekend, and you only have 5 on the floor at the time, then storytelling becomes way easier, because there's just less moving parts, less mass confusion, less bodies. So I think that's not its own event, but less teams at the main event.
Okay, didn't really answer the question, but I still like the thought there. So I'm going to give you 2 points.
Wait,
you expected. So
I have a follow-up for Tim. You could give him an extra point if you like this answer or not. But Tim, do you think it would be worth at all separating the events if it allowed the athletes to participate in both?
I mean, I like that, Niki.
Ooh, maybe.
Almost like Wadapalooza.
Am I coming out of retirement?
That just makes my brain hurt thinking about the season, though. You know what I mean? Like they got to go to semifinals now and do both a semifinal team, and it's like, oh man, the attrition rate. I think that could be the birth of a very fun idea, because who wouldn't love to see like
Tia, Claire, Toomey hop on a team for a 3-day, like in the actual mix of the season when it matters, like, and this could maybe segue towards our next talking point for that. So I will say, yes, there is a definite valid nugget of an idea there.
I like the way you guys teed that up. At the end of round number 2, Niki leads the way with 8 points, Jared right behind with 7, and Tim, just 5 points for him so far. Just 5. 1 round to go.
Oh, yeah.
So this was actually a perfect segue because Dave Castro, he recently brought up the idea on his YouTube channel that CrossFit training camps should have head-to-head matches. For example, Proven against HWPO, Mayhem Invictus, et cetera, et cetera. Great idea in theory, but how could this happen? Jared, I'm going to let you start round number 3.
So you got to give me like an extra credit because I wasn't prepared for this like the others were. But I do want to say real quick that Dave only credited like 3 camps in his post. And there are a lot more camps out there that I think deserve recognition. One of them being Underdogs Athletics, another being Training Think Tank. You've got the program, you've got No Shortcuts Training in Europe, right? And there's probably 3 or 4 or 5 more that I'm not thinking of. So I think that those camps deserve credit and that just the Mayhem's, just the hard work pays off, and just the Provens aren't the only ones that exist for everyone out there. But how could it work? Like a recruiting system, right? They all have over 10 athletes in their, respective camps. The thing is that they've just got people all over the world though. So I think that they would have to, just like the showcase event at FitFest or some of these team events, they'd have to recruit, like there'd have to be a setup for, okay, there's going to be a training camp battle in the off season. There's going to be 6 total athletes. 3 of them will be women. 3 of them will be men. Each camp has to recruit those people, and maybe they have like tryouts for that. And then there's an off-season date. And then they have to announce in advance like what these events would look like. There's going to be 6 events. There's going to be 8 events. And so kind of like what we've talked about before with these showcase events, it has to be somewhere in the middle between a competition and a showcase event where they're not getting beat up like they might at the CrossFit Games, so they can continue to advance through their season. But I think at the same time, just like any other competition, there's going to have to be sponsors available. There's going to have to be a broadcast for it to really be fruitful and like to continue to work for the next year and the next year. Because some competitions happen once, and they don't happen again because they cost a lot of money and they don't make a lot of money unless you have a broadcast and you can provide value to sponsors and things like that. But I think the basis of it is identifying how many people we're going to have do this. What are all the camps that are eligible to do that? Find out how they're eligible, and then just give it a try.
3 points for Jared. Tim, are you texting Tia right now to see if she'll be on a Proven team with you?
100%. I think actually, so like, here's my cool take on how this could run. So I'm a golf nut. They just had the Ryder Cup this last weekend.
Yeah, that's great.
Doesn't know how this kind of works. Like, you have a set roster, and then there's pairs play. There's different formats of golf. We won't go into detail on. And then you have individuals as well. So you have people play each other individually, and it's always a direct head-to-head matchup. And I think that could be super cool for some of these training camps and a way for athletes to engage and not get destroyed. Like, you set a roster number, like, hey, you need 4 males, 4 females. And then, closer to the event, you find out like, okay, there are a couple 2-on-2, work, like 2 versus 2 workouts where it's male, female, or like you set it up where there's individual head-to-heads, you find out what the events are, and then the training camp is in charge of structuring which athletes compete in which events to give them the best chance to win. So it lets athletes play to their strengths a little bit, and it also requires some actual investment and strategy from the training camps themselves to look at to try and develop a roster of potentially diverse abilities, not necessarily just all of your fittest people. Like, you don't just take your 8 fittest individuals and throw them out there. It's like, we kind of want a stronger person. We kind of want a more gymnastics person. And then there's events where you can kind of mix and match that way. And I think it could be like, again, explained correctly, could be a really fun way for people to like engage with these training camps and actually see, which training camp not only has some of the best athletes, but some of the best coaching, the best strategy, things like that as well.
Sean or Tommy in the background, which one of you was talking about the Riders Cup last week?
We both were.
We both were.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
I love that idea, but
that's
also
a 10-point answer. One thing, the Ryder Cup, matchups are picked blind, so you could take it from the President's Cup, which is another similar format, where depending on point spread and who's in the lead, you do have to showcase your picks and allow the other team to respond to that. So that would, I think, add to it a little bit, and you could alternate back and forth. But yeah, love that idea.
Yeah, we're big fans. We're going away now.
Okay, goodbye.
That's why I think we need to announce the events in advance, though, so you know how to recruit your team. That's kind of what I was getting at. Is like, how do I know who I want to put on my team if they're all just, triplets under 10 minutes?
Right. Yeah. When someone posted it in the comments, but it does kind of give grid vibes in a way. Like that is a little bit similar to what you can do in that league. And
I would. Yeah, I guess like there's definitely, I would say there could be carryover, but I guess the way it's playing out in my mind, it doesn't feel similar. Like the way that I think it could possibly, flow, it would be different than that. Like you wouldn't just have Mongo getting broken out of his cage for one event, like you would still have to you would still have people who are like very, very high level athletes, but just with maybe more slight biases, to try and like win events, things like that, versus like trying to collect a team of just specialists, So I think there's in my head, there's a little bit of a difference, but hey, maybe I'm being a little optimistic.
Yeah, we have unique programming. It's more like grid, though. Like if you know what I mean, because some of the movements that you do also makes that what it is. But anyways,
solid answer, Tim. I'm going to give you 6 points. I know Sean said 10, but he gets a little crazy on the point system. All right, Niki. Last but not least,
okay.
What are your thoughts here?
I think this could be fun. Unique idea, but stay with me. So it starts out like old school affiliate cup, right? So kind of like an online competition where anyone from the training camps can participate and everybody put their scores in and everybody's score kind of like adds to that training camp's overall spot on the leaderboard. And then that training camp ends up being able to pick the people from within that scoring system that like performed the best for them or has the highest scores across the board or whatever they want to do. And then I think you bring those people, so elite athletes not really included, but I think you bring those select people from the training camps to do a showcase and battle live at the CrossFit Games. Because how often do we say we wish we had sort of like regular people alongside the elite athletes? And so at the CrossFit Games, in addition to the elite athletes going head to head, whether they be individual and teams based off of our last question, you also have this showcase that is the training camp groups. And it's all these sort of like intermediate type athletes who maybe get to do, I don't know, you could do it so many ways. Like they could do one event at each location where we have a thing. Like I'll just take Madison as an example. Like, all the athletes were in the Coliseum and then one night the training camps get to do a thing there. And then they have like 3 or 4 events over the course of the weekend where everything comes together, like one swimming event and one event on the field and one event here or whatever. Or maybe they're doing the exact same events as we're watching the teams do or an adaptation, so that it's kind of like a one-to-one, like we just watched the athletes do this. And now we watch these sort of like everyday gym heroes do this. I don't know. That would be how I could see it happening all at once. I don't know if the intention of this question was like, how do you get like Tia in her camp to also battle an elite athlete in another camp? Like that's also very cool. I just thought of it more as like kind of like old school affiliate cup.
I mean,
I think Niki's idea, I like the qualifier for this because like, obviously that's a great way to get, but I'm thinking of it still more in the elite sense, because I think like, then you could have, some of the quote unquote lesser known training camps try to qualify, so like camps trying to make their names who have a couple solid, like I think that could be a really cool way to have them pit off against some of the best training camps. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, new ideas. I generally think top down first. Let's see if we can maybe even make this a thing, and then we can roll down to like, getting some community involvement and like, because you're almost kind of turning it into like an affiliate cup at that point, like an affiliate showcase, which again is a great idea in a lot of ways. But
because you would have the elite athletes on site cheering on their regular people. I mean, think about like like Matt Fraser connects with quite literally like thousands of people on a weekly basis who are in his program who are not even close to an elite level, but he has that connection. So you would have like the elite athletes on site cheering on us lay folk. it would just be another really cool sense of community, I think.
It could make some great video reels.
Right?
That is for sure.
Here for the storytelling content, you guys.
Here for the storytelling. Niki will earn 3 points for her answer. And for the first time ever, guess what? Jared Graybeal, you get to tie break Tim and Niki.
Oh.
Okay, how does this work? How does the tiebreak work?
You decide.
Oh, he just
Oh.
picks.
You just pick.
Man.
Oh.
Jared,
I
I've
see.
never won. Tim wins like every week.
Oh, Niki. Okay.
Look at Tim's face.
Listen.
I've never even come close to winning. I feel like this is an accomplishment in and of itself.
Niki, I really like you. I just
Oh
my God, I just
it's
won. Go ahead,
let me
I
tell
Jared.
really
you
like
why
you,
I'm gonna pick
but-
Tim. Your answer to the last question, there's nothing wrong with it by any means. It's just like
I just hated it. I just didn't like it.
in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm going to respond to this. And I'm like, no, you don't need to respond to this. And so now I have to respond to it. So I'm going to tell you, Tim wins the tiebreak. But because, Niki, there are so many community competitions throughout literally the world of CrossFit that I think like we don't necessarily need another one. Although if we had another one, that would be a really cool version of it. You're over here to me. So when I hear that, I'm like, oh man, not another community competition. We need more elite level competitions that are paying out cash prizes with a broadcast.
Says the elite athlete manager.
That's the guy trying to
Throw that out there.
You know, so nothing against the community. I just think like gyms have in-house competitions every weekend. There's, you know, there's the brawls and the like every single weekend. If you want to Google a local competition, there's one happening, and that's amazing. That's why the community thrives. But there isn't enough quality earning opportunities for the people at the top, and so that is why I'm choosing Tim to win the tiebreak.
Tim's
And
probably out of topics to even talk about at the top of the podium. He's like running out.
I'm making one up as we speak.
Do you want mine?
I have
Do you want to rant on mine?
I have one for you if you,
Yeah.
if you need one.
Same.
You can tag
Cool.
someone in if you need to, Tim.
Hey, what are your guys' ideas? I'll pick one and I'll rant on it.
There shouldn't be less than 40 people at the games.
He just said that there should be fewer teams.
No, less than 40 individual men and
Oh,
women.
individuals.
There
Okay.
should not be less than 40 individual men and women that go to the games. That's one of my hot takes. Not even hot take. That's my opinion.
Okay, my non-hot take opinion is that in the context of life in general, masters athletes are the greatest athletes in CrossFit.
Which one
That's
are
it.
you taking, Tim?
I'll go with Nikki's. I think. Yeah, I mean, no,
Hells.
I agree.
It's like
I
I
agree.
won.
No, I agree completely. I think that like the masters athletes deserve to be highlighted because like I coach a couple of masters athletes now that I like am again were retired, whatever that means. But like I've delved more into the coaching side of it, and it's like the schedules that they manage, the level of fitness that they manage to achieve, like the dedication that they put into it, like it's very, very impressive. Like what they go through, the work-life balance that they have to actually kind of work around that most elite athletes don't. Training full-time is impressive, period. There's nothing about like there's nothing wrong with that, but like to actually have to balance fitness with family and other things like that, you're an actual, job, things like that. I think it is very impressive and deserves to be highlighted far more often than it is. So I'll give the masters athletes a shout out, some kudos.
Hey, the Masters.
Excellent points, Tim. Thank you for representing my topic.
Tim, congratulations on another win of Death by Niki. You were so close, lady. You were so close.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Just wait.
I'm sorry, Niki.
It's all right.
Jared, thank you for joining and thank you for being the first ever contestant tiebreaker. Hopefully this doesn't hurt your friendship with Niki. I'm sure it has increased your friendship with Tim.
Perfect.
Much cooler friend to have, to be fair.
Tim, Niki, Jared, everybody watching, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Death By. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and we will see you next time.